Conundrum crickets. That's right. Be a cricket and chirp all you want and be found out and smashed. Be quiet as a cricket, be found out and smashed. That's pretty much it. And we can do that all we want. We can just sit there and be crickets and be comfortable and thinking that it's okay just to not respond to the stuff against us. And the evidence of what we need to do is really all around us. And I just kind of try to come here every week to try and explain. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it more. I know it's like maybe a broken record. I just try to bring all the different ways you can just get involved. Just get involved. The conundrum is, do you remain silent, let it come over you because it's coming. It's here, actually. It just hasn't manifested itself quite completely, and they do that incrementally. Do you see it and respond, or does it wash over you? Do you see it and respond wrong, and then it takes you out? Is another problem, but not so much that it can't be dealt with as I'm here to tell you. We have, as you work with this, you start finding there's certain ways to deal with it. And for those of you on the past cast, this will be, I think, BTWRLM, is it 163? I think it is. Really should check that out, shouldn't I? But the whole problem here is responding, not allowing crime to happen to us. We're all duty bound. For all the denial I hear about people wanting to be, the independent, all this other stuff. Well, yeah, you are independent. You're dependent on everybody around you. That's what society is. That's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing the same failure in lots of people talking. No different than the people that argue that Congress has the right and property under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 or something. And they miss the word ceding. And then I've seen lots of people talk about philosophies. They talk about the philosophy. We can talk about philosophies all we want. We got a day today that's causing us harm. We got to stop it today. Forget the philosophy. The philosophy is the principle of stopping it against you. Don't talk more about philosophy. That you try to make a new philosophy of a new way to go. You haven't figured out that you're denying all the other stuff, and you haven't realized that just no different than people destroy the word seed in the position regarding the state's powers regarding land disposal is the same thing they take out. They drop the word society in all these definitions when speaking to things like anarchy. I've tried to explain that. People tend not to, listen. Or maybe, I don't even know what it is. Is it a hearing and not listening, or listening and not hearing? But something's not happening. And I hear this drum beat over and over, and we're wasting nothing but time here. Precious, precious time. See, the system that sits there works on waiting you out. It's pretty simple. I've said this before. I don't joke about a lot of this stuff. I don't make a joke of it. I guess I should. Maybe people would pay attention to it. They're waiting for you to die. That's all they're waiting for you. And in the meantime, they're going to suck from your life everywhere they can. And I was coming up talking about Social Security. I don't even know where it came from, because it was all, you can do what you want, how you want, the world's your oyster, this and that. And I looked at the Social Security system, but way back when, I said, that's not going to be for me. That's not going to be there when I get there. How did I even know that? That you see the system parasitically pulling from everything they developed as a benefit, so-called, to you. And so we've had a whole world. We all live under a slavery. However, we call it all kinds of things. But until we decide to come together and not deny the better parts of our past, hold on to those and move forward, and act in the proper ways to stop what we have, we're going to continue to be slaves in the world. And everybody's listening to me, and anybody who never listens to me will all be living the life gave to them or imposed upon them, because you just didn't stop it. If everybody wanted to truly be their own monarch, their own despot, and that's a neutral word, their own free will being, they would have to respond to the oppression and repression that they live under. Because that's the end up being the world. That's the reality. All these philosophies we talk about today deny the realities. And I listen to it, and I say, this is, again, I can't discuss this stuff. I just don't have a thing in me. I can't even find a debate point. Everyone's got a philosophy first. So I'm going to impose my philosophy by a set of questions, and we're sitting there debating on something that's really irrelevant to the problem that someone's behind us clubbing us in the head like a baby seal. First tab. It's Police Appreciation Week. Here are 8 cops who risked their jobs and lives to expose corruption. Now, you know, I'm taking that word police. This is Military Appreciation Week. Military Executioners Appreciation Week. And 8 of those soldiers, those troopers, these state troopers, people don't realize it. We actually had a commander talk. He says, "My troop." People don't realize that there's a reality behind it. There's no philosophy around what we're talking about here. But it's Police Appreciation Week. And we're expounding here that we appreciate that 8 cops risked their jobs and lives to expose corruption. And I read that again. I get to the headline. This is speaking through someone else, speaking through their awareness and their thoughts. And I just look at that highline, that second, third hearsay statement, and I'm looking at the appreciation that you even mentioned. It's police appreciation. You're not recognizing the military occupation you live under. And where did we go to the point when we actually condone that 8 cops would be risking their jobs and lives, folks, to expose corruption? But don't we have a problem? We see people saying right there that there's a corruption, and we appreciate that. We don't do anything about it, but we appreciate that. And then we don't identify the nemesis that we're actually up against, which is this military occupational forces, maybe soon to be conquest. I've been denying it, but you know, the more we respond or don't respond, and the more our generations move on, because they wait us out. They just watch us die off. Those of us that have the eyes to see and ears to hear something, if not everything, they wait us out because they know they work on those failings in you in a world that we have the principle that's told to us behind the universal woodshed that says that there will be someone that will appear to be your brother or even your half-brother, depending on how you analyze this, that will blame you and your innocence for their responsibility and kill you. That we don't even address that. That's not even part of our awareness when we talk about what we need to try and do or talk about all the problems and all this. It's not even a reality to us that we come to a day that we are appreciative of a so-called police who risk their lives and jobs when they're exposing corruption. That's just supposed to be what we do, folks. It's not supposed to be in a class called whistleblower or some exonerated place. What kind of a society have we allowed upon ourselves? What crimes have we allowed to witness? What accessories to the crimes are we that we would do this to ourselves, to raise up and allow these police to be losing their lives or their jobs, to expose the corruption of the very jobs they were claiming to be performing? Is astonishing to me if I didn't have any other thought to say. And a lot of times, you know, I'm getting to the point, I really don't have a whole lot more to say. If these things are self-evident crimes against us that we are duty-bound to stop, for all y'all that want to say, oh, we're in anarchy and we're it's not chaos, it's rules but not rulers. It's nonsense. You have these people that are working against you and hurting you. If you want to be the despot in your own life, then you're going to have to stand up and stop it like every other nation or monarch ever has when they were attacked. And until you do, you're just blowing smoke. The same smoke they blow at you through the barrel of the gun when they execute you in the street. But I saw this thing at Police Appreciation Week, and I'm just thinking, you know, behind the woodshed, we all have this idea about the police. We kind of snicker about the lie, the fraud about that. But you know, what's missing here? We're appreciative of a police that's going to out corruption, and we don't do anything to support it. And we don't, and then ask, why are we even allowing that would be the case, that there is a corruption? I mean, certainly it's bad enough they're losing jobs and lives, folks. You lose your life because you out a criminal? That's another type of felony, isn't it? Talk about organized crime. That's the corruption. It's beyond corruption, actually. How slight we put that word, corrupt. Oh, it's just a corruption. Oh, it's just a little flaw in the material we use to construct it. No, this is crime. And we are duty-bound as people. We're duty-bound as any moral being to stop it. You're not free and so-called anarchist enough not to stop the crime against someone else either, because it's going to come to you. Oh, you may think you're big and bad enough, but then there's a couple of them that come after you, and that gang gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because we never arrested and treated and remedied the guy that would come along to do that, or the woman. And so I looked at this Police Appreciation Week, and we're sitting here allowing this society to go into a place of crime, and we exonerate those people that were the troopers, thought that they were going to do good as a trooper, and found even corruption to that level. What have I exposed to you? I said I've done the international law study, so-called, the law so-called that we're supposed to follow as an international nation, entities amongst each other because of this problem we have being people and full of flaw, that this international law is supposed to be set up in order so we can get along, because we won't if we don't. Apparently it gives us something objective to base our conflicts on. And we have people in the seats of power all over the globe that violate that to no end. Where do we go? The Galactic Federation? Is that another government up there that we have to worry about? We can't do it here? Who are we inside that we don't respond to that instead of making excuses? I got people turning off all over the place right now, I'm sure. They can't handle this. And I'm not even being that tough. I'm not that charismatic to punch this harder than this. I know there's some people out there. I've heard them. I just want people to recognize the problem and stop making excuses by trying to talk whatever they talk in order to make a salvation to themselves. It's not going to happen. Police Appreciation Week, because they're outing the system for being a criminal. Yeah, at some point I have to appreciate that they're putting themselves on. They may have been innocent enough to walk in thinking they're doing good and walked into this thing, and they want to out it. But the system itself can be seen to be the criminal before you get in. And we continue to allow both. The harm to someone who would try to arrest a crime, and the crime in the first instance. And we'll make all kinds of excuses about how that ain't going to work, there's nothing we can do, or there's only a few of us, or we're going to have to start from some place and work out bigger. Yeah, that's how that works. So you're just telling, you already know how to do it. I've always seen this. People already know the answer in them. This is the other thing that frustrates me. I don't know why I'm starting to get frustrated. Because the answer is in us already. We are moral beings, and that answer is there in us. Why aren't we doing and responding? Police Appreciation Week. Military Appreciation Week, and there's some troopers inside that military that say, hey, this thing's corrupt, and they can lose their lives and their jobs, and that's a good thing, I would suppose. But that system continues, and we are the ones that support that because we don't come to their aid. No different than the fire example that I tell you. You see a fire, you go fight the fire. Now, who are you to stand across the road to let someone else do the fighting of the fire all by themselves? And what's the odds of them all by themselves of making the arrest? Well, they might be able to, but it's a lot tougher. The many of the hands make light work, and it doesn't take that many hands. So, I do appreciate some of these guys that are going into the military, finding out it's not the police, and saying, hey, this is a corruption. I do appreciate that they are doing that. But that's not exceptional. That's supposed to be us as moral beings calling out the harms against us so that it doesn't continue to happen. This says it's going to continue to happen. So while we parade around throwing up the whistleblower, as bad as it is that they're having to be the whistleblower, we do not turn our attention to stop what caused them to be the whistleblower at all. And that's the incremental problem I see going on everywhere in every subject matter of our life. And that's why I look at the news, the notice, and I say, listen, there's an answer. It's target-rich environment. I don't care what interests you. You look in the notice that they tell us they call it the news, and you should be able to find something to stop as a crime. And that's the problem. It's all over the place. We almost don't even see things as crimes anymore. And as long as that criminal is not arrested or not made to feel the heat of 1,000 suns, it's going to continue. And you're going to get to the point when there's a few of us and we look out and we say, yeah, there's not much we can do. And it's just a reinforcing self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? But we're talking about they bring it down, they put you down, and they beat you down, and they make it so that you're focused on something else about you so that you stop looking at the criminal. Talked about Venezuela last week. I just want to jump over and hit a couple things in the past, continue to bring them up. fact, I had so many tabs on my board right now, the subject matters to talk about. My browser won't even close correctly now. I've got to figure out something. I had to offload a whole lot of tabs. It's just so much to talk about. There's so many places to go to use as examples to show us how we're supposed to prepare for what's being thrown against us in the time that we're supposed to also act, and then be knowledgeable before we act, and then act nonetheless. You have to act through your ignorance. You can't continue to be clueless, and I believe that none of us really are. I call it cluelessness, but it's really it's a crime against yourself. You know that there's a problem. Anybody not doing something is an accessory to that crime. And people don't want to hear that. And I'm not saying I can go after every crime. You can't do that either. Nobody can do that. But we can do the arrest we find happening in front of us, in the place in our life. But what they affect in your life will be everything you need. We've talked about this before. Here's an example. I'm saying watch Venezuela like we watch the Middle East as a reflection of what happens and how they take you down. Now, the United States is a bit insulated, but not so much either. Not so much either. In Venezuela, as we're seeing what's going on, we see the root problem. We see this throughout the history of the world of how they go after people. I mentioned the Ukraine before when that bread basket was taken down. They go right after your food source. What's the first thing that's coming out of Venezuela? We want food. Venezuela crisis deepens. I also understand that the emergency that was declared by their president was also just upheld by their Supreme Court, which says in a democratic process he's doing what he's supposed to do. Apparently, the point is he's got his hands full over there. He's got the United States of America coming in the back door, causing the Venezuela Spring, going to destroy his nation, to put their puppets in. And he's trying to control this, even though it's a socialist process. I don't agree with all that, but that's what those people are agreeing to. They want it, but they don't want to be hungry. And they're dysfunctional at the point of hunger. And that's one of the first things that comes out of the people's mouth. We're hungry. If you think you can forestall these things, you're going to have to be able to deal with, talk about, them putting austerity. You're going to have to put self-austerity so they can't harm you with what you need faster and more than what you're willing and able to continue with unless and until you fix that problem. We want food. That's the whole point. When you look and see this story, you get this in the Blogcaster. For those of you on the Pastcast looking in, you'll see that they're not here to be violent. They're not trying to protest that way. Whatever the news is that we get in the United States or from the Western media, it's people just wanting food, and the government appears to be doing what it can on hardly nothing. So what this is showing us, as long as the people stay together and they're integrated, when they see the external harm coming in and they realize that and not throw it off onto, we can't trust our government. Listen to what I'm saying here now, folks. Your unity is your own government, whether it's the original official one or the registered, the organized, established one or not. If you stay unified, you have a better success, and you can start defending, protecting yourselves. That anything you have to ask for outside is going to be a weakness. Find this problem in Venezuela, and you will have to see that's another heap of responsibility on you locally if you intend to go after anybody who is in a system such as would appreciate a military over you and comes in the costume of police. We have to be prepared and reliant on ourselves and then extendedly of each other. That's society. It's a natural forming thing when something attacks you. If you find yourself a nation unto yourself, you will be overrun. There's no doubt. There's nothing in my mind that says there's not something bigger than each one of us out there when it decides it wants you gone. And so that to me, this Venezuela thing, look at as an object lesson of how people get taken down, how nations get taken down. That can happen local to anybody in any way for anything. You have to be able to talk about prepper. You have to be prepared in your mind, body, and spirit, and function to make redundant and or collateral provisions on how they work in taking you down. When you're hungry, you don't care what's happening. They don't care that if the government, the social government that they have chosen, however that has happened, even by military force, that's their problem as well. It's all over the world, this problem is being undermined to no end, and complete chaos at this point ensues, and they're trying to hold it together. Is an object lesson for you all, how you get taken down. They do it in the subtlest way. I've told you they're going to do the same thing, but in slow motion in the so-called Western governments in the United States of America. You slowly pull this stuff away from people. They thought that they were free and had a way to go about it. We've watched the so-called middle class evaporate in just a handful of years. The story is, I understand that if there's $1,000 problem in most everybody's American's life, they couldn't cover it. Handful of years they've gotten us to the point we don't even know we may be actually worse than Venezuela. Why? Because they don't have a food shortage. You don't have a power shortage. You have to manage which necessity you're going to have, but you don't have the shortage like these people do. But if you don't see Venezuela as an object lesson on what to do, how to really prepare, the depth of the preparation, what it takes, we're going to miss the point, and we will be a conquered people by our own needs. We are accessories to the crime against us, and then they were able to come in and take our needs and use them against us as well. You're only going to do a few things when someone stops your air. I can just guarantee you. And when they have every aspect of your life, you're only going to be focusing on those things that you're going to try and replace because, well, air is just a couple minutes, water's a couple weeks, food's a couple months. Then how do you get there? How do you get around all this nonsense? Everywhere you travel, there's a cop on you doing something. Why? Because they can parasite from you even more. Show you how much of a free man you are. Why? Because you never stopped it in the beginning, and you let them get bigger, and you just didn't become this nauseous thing to them. The shift to cashless society is snowballing. There's a lot of stories now out on the cashless. It's now the meme that's going through. Just wanted to point it out. We talked about this here weeks and weeks ago. I said, here it is. Watch it, folks. They're making the plans. If you didn't know it before, they're actually looking at the Bitcoin, the blockchain as a provision for that. I told you that going in. I wasn't too, the technology's cool and neat, but that's not what it's there. None of this stuff is there for us, actually. It's a military occupation of your life, period. Unless you're in control of the origins of it all, you are subject to whomever created or authored whatever you're doing, using, reading, or involved with. The shift to a cashless society is snowballing. I focused on the snowballing. It's getting bigger quick, folks. It's gathering steam. It's getting big quick. And there's nothing that I hear anybody doing about it. I don't hear anybody coming together to make the alternative system. What might be an alternative system? Well, we know we have the community cash. We have that stuff they call community cash. Those mountain hours or whatever. There has to be something even better than that. Those are all still not so tangible. I really think I think about going back to the silver coin. Go ahead and start collecting it up and start using that at the conversion rate. Whatever fixes then on that, it's more tangible. We're talking tangible wealth, not this intangible. Folks, I don't know if people appreciate this. I talked about it when I said there was 2 boatloads of money going to Britain and the $2 trillion that went in after the 2000 TARP thing and all that. I said that money just dwarfed any cash you have in your system. 1 trillion would have done it. They just dwarfed anything you can do as an independent currency to stop them. And then we heard of derivatives, and that dwarfed that. We are beyond, folks. I told you this then. We are beyond. And money is your energy. Money is how you communicate. This is how you get along in the world from one to another because we haven't become aware enough to figure out an alternative. But in the books, in the society that's prepared us for this, there is salvation, if you will, in certain things that we can use tangible, not intangible derivatives, but tangible things to us that we should have never abandoned. The weight and measure. Weighted and measure, that's pretty, agriculturally sounding. There was money that was based on grains. They did that for a reason. You're looking at the substance of the earth coming to production through men and women to the greater society, the thing that everyone in their philosophies today wants to imagine away. There has to be this society, it seems, because it seems in every other instance where you have individual people, separate people, they will get at some point in some future time, at some point will be run down and taken advantage of or taken over. Or killed to get rid of. Just get rid of you. It's snowballing this cashless condition. Tangible wealth is the only thing I can see that can be converted. We don't even need to be interfered with the intangible. It's the ether, the fiction. They talk about, everyone's talked about this straw man, doesn't even know what they're talking about. In fact, I've proven it already. In fact, I talked about this a little bit in our mining district meeting with a situation with a miner. The fiction that come against you isn't even there. It's fraud. It's not a straw man. It's a fraud. It doesn't exist. That's a double perceptive problem for us, thinking that it does, and then calling it something, and then putting all our time and energy around it. When it's a crime in just its existence. It doesn't exist. Forget this straw man nonsense at the point of not understanding what it really means in the legal, even in law. The straw man doesn't exist if you really know what you're looking at. This is the way this so-called money works, this cashless thing. It doesn't exist. It's all based it's intangible. It's in your mind. It's what they base their controls on. In other words, if you don't pay in this, you don't get your energy. If you just look at it simply that way. If you don't have that name that they've fraudulently created by your signature you said and agreed to, and didn't denounce the system that, we can't put it in the computer unless it's all in caps, and denounce that whole thing and stop using it, because that tells you, that was their notice, it was foreign to you. You keep embracing this, and you can expect to be involved in a snowballing, cashless system that is completely out of your control and completely in somebody else's control. So, can you stop that derivative, fabricated fairy tale imposition? Absolutely not. Think about that. This is somebody's nightmare put on you. How do you deal with that? That's their psychopathy. That's their psychosis. You have to just abandon whatever influence they think they had and call that out and work within your own structure. And I've looked back. I'm not so smart. I can look back. There were some pretty smart things that were set up for us. We can't throw those away. Tangible, weight and measure money is done by the states. I hear Texas is going to do a state gold-backed something. I don't remember now if it's a coin or not, but they need to go to coin, and they make tangible. Yes, it does not fit into the fairy tale derivatives, a made-up situation of the quadrillions. I can't even think of these numbers. That will swamp anything tangible if you allow it. And so there has to be a demarcation. For those of you that do understand it, you're the people that have been primed to this point to be able to step up and start to educate other people, that you become the pebble in the pond that becomes the tsunami on another shore. Yes, it takes a while. But with your knowledge of this stuff better than maybe certainly I would have, to be able to explain in simple terms to people that were also duped, we can make this big difference. We can make and become the examples that we're supposed to do. I think part of this is made for us to do this. But anyway, there's so much to talk about. I look at these stories, and they're telling us a ton. Talking about electronic payments, that's the cashless society. Are you in control of that? How many hackings go on? That tells you that not even the people in the system are in control of that. Should tell you how far away from nature we are of our own nature. And it's been and our actual nature, that fallen part, has been taken advantage of to get us here. And so the crime against you, I tell you, take the ring out of your nose, quit being an accessory to the crime against you, is going to require that you start utilizing the weapons and the tools against you in intelligent ways in order to maneuver around to make yourself separate. It's already been done once. We just kind of absorbed this other thing and let it attach to us. And so then the propaganda goes out that you're going to be a free man on the land and you got a straw man. You know, that stuff all came out of the code, cracking the code back in the 90s. And there's so many holes in that damn thing that I just didn't go that way. I just didn't go that way. There were so many holes and disconnections. There was, again, applying the law of the land, the chain of title, the links of the chain, the links of evidence of the chain of title, the links up to the law. They were missing major links, and people absorbed them. And now we lost all that between 9/11 and 2010, 2011, and it came back without the notice of its source. It was a fallen idea. And I've come to the point here this year, and because of the circumstances, to show an example now in the record. It's sitting in the court cases. It's sitting as criminal complaints before the sheriff, all within the system. The military knows all about their problem. This proof that they're creating a straw man that doesn't exist, a fraud, doesn't even exist. It's not a straw man. That name you look at is a fraud. It's not a straw man. As soon as you say it's a straw man, you don't even understand. You've taken it on yourself as a potential idea. So they worked on our minds, the propaganda comes, and then they work on our capacity because they know they deal with our necessities. They know exactly what to feed us. And we see the evidence now coming out. It's always amazing to me. They tell us what's going on, even somewhat after the fact. Well, they told us it was a problem. They tell us it's affecting you, but they said they dealt with it back in the 60s. So they have, what I'm talking about here is how they deal with your mind. You don't even know. Some of us know and understand how we now see fluoride, the toothpaste, how they've used that, and we know that's a mind number. It's actually, it's a rat poison for those of you that believe that you're like a rat. I guess we are. The amazing creation of this world and its animals were formed by some simple core plan. And it only takes a little bit of adjustment to make all the different things you see. Is a very fascinating study that they were all susceptible to these things because of the common origins of a very intelligently made condition. A core, like a core kernel, that you just add different things on and little subtleties here and there. All of a sudden, out pops a rat, out pops a pig, out pops a people. That's why we can only be 3% different and still be so different. But those things that we are gifted in are known to be our strengths, are things that are attacked. They told us that lead was a poison. They work on your mind. They work on your ability to cognize what you're doing and thinking. Everyone talks about critically thinking and, we got to do this, all these things. And I hear so many people talking about fallacies and this, and they can go through the litany of all the fallacies. And when they're done talking, they said nothing. And I've looked at it and said, who cares? I got somebody trying to beat me in the head like a baby seal. Who cares about the fallacy? That's real over there. Okay, the baby seal was an analogy and it was a fallacy. But you understand what I'm saying. We get lost in how intelligent we are. We're not intelligent at all. They have our mind controlled. You have to fight all the time over that. Like I tell you, I can't tell you how I'm controlled still, what I don't see and what I don't know. I'm not fearful of it, but I'm real aware that I could be walking in the path of my own destruction because I was unaware of my unawareness. And why, as you hear these stories, lead poisoning, we were told about this. Lead poisoning messes you up. But now there's a study. Lead poisoning could really be cause for violent crime. Think about this dynamic now. Now, they told us they got rid of it because it was in the paints and all this stuff in the 60s, all that nonsense. But now we have a problem that's been identified that lead can be shown to actually cause something in you. This is almost like this epigenetic alteration that goes on like we talked about with the ant colony. But lead poisoning could be the cause. Could be. This is scientific. We got to go soft on the coulds. They don't want to ever be talking particularly proving because we know it's scientology. It's what we think we know. That's fine enough. If it shows us something that might be of danger for us, we want to be able to be aware of these things. See, we've even lost our own innate ability to notice danger. See, animals are actually smarter than us, more intelligent. They won't eat certain plants because they know they'll be poisoned. We come along, we find the mushroom, we eat it, we're dead. Our liver falls out and we're done. So we've lost something in us that was used to be innate to us. But we have our scientists to tell us, and so if we're smart, we'll listen, but we have to be careful because they also might have an agenda. They're of a fallen nature too. They're like us, have the same weaknesses. So, but this story here says that lead could be a poison. They've told us that before. They said they were dealing with it, but now we see not only is it just a poison, but it actually alters you. At first it seemed preposterous. The hypothesis was so exotic that I laughed. This is written by George Monbiot. The rise and fall of violent crime during the second half of the 20th century and the first years of the 21st were caused, it proposed, not by changes in policing and imprisonment, single parenthood, recessions, crack cocaine, or legislation of abortion, but mainly by lead. And this is where my mind went, and the author hits it in the second paragraph. I don't mean by bullets. So this is to tell you, Police Appreciation Week. Yeah, you're going to be dying by lead poisoning. But I don't mean by bullets. The crime waves that afflicted many parts of the world and then against all predictions collapsed were ascribed, in an article published by Mother Jones last week, to the rise and fall of the use of lead-based paint and leaded petrol. It's ridiculous until you see the evidence. I'll stop there. You can read the rest. I just want to call your attention. I told you about the way they affect your necessities, and they affect what you need. You need water. I want your mind now to jump up, and I hope it already did. Anticipate what I'm going to say. Go to Flint, Michigan. What happened there? They got caught. I really think they got caught on something they were planning, and it went bad too fast. They didn't really anticipate something. They were going to leadify the water in Flint, Michigan. They are now forcing those people to drink that water and pay for it. Let's some of you may still be alive in 20 years. Let's look into the future. Let's remember to look into the future around Flint, Michigan, or any other metropolitan area that had a lead problem that you weren't told about. You got to find them. Like I told you, you're going to find out that these problems are everywhere. And look what happened. You're being told they're everywhere. The EPA is not there to help you. In fact, the EPA washed its hands of this up until it got such an outcry, and they still haven't moved too fast, as you noticed. But I think there was a plan to leadify the water. This is like future job security, isn't it? 20 years into the future, we look at Flint, Michigan. You tell me if we're still around. Remind me. Come to me. markonthebeach.yahoo.com if that's still available. See, everything's not going to be around for permanent. We can't control everything. We don't know what the future holds. But you come to me in 20 years and tell me whether or not the crime rate in Flint, Michigan increases. You be the scientist here and follow up, do the peer review. Given the study information and evidence, it appears to be so that they can cause you to be a criminal. And you don't even know it. Here we find Flint, Michigan. The problem was lead in the water. See, I think that got away from them. You weren't supposed to know that. They had that handled. Detroit water was going to be given to that place at half price so that they wouldn't have to go to the new source that was going to leadify, break down by acid intrusion to the pipe system. You're looking at a heinous crime behind this. And we're looking at evidence right now that said that lead can cause you to change. I'm telling you that if there's evidence of lead, that's not the only element in the periodical chart. I'd like to go to let's become scientists, go to the periodical chart. Now look where lead is in the chart and look up and down in a vertical fashion what the elements are above and below that. And I will suggest to you that all those elements may be doing the same thing at different rates. And if you go around, you'll find these things in your water and they will affect you. There's also a sphere of effect that comes around that vertical chain, that vertical line. You'll see this in lots of. If you look around, you'll see these interactions through the chemical chart, the elemental chart. Whether or not that's completely accurate, I don't know. It depends on what your study is, but it's good enough for us in this discussion. So, lead can cause you to be a criminal. What else might be able to do that? What causes these things for us to respond is another proof, like fluoride, that what is given to us or allowed to us can affect us. If you are diminished, how are you going to respond to this? See, you're going to respond if you got this poisoning and you don't know it, or other poisoning that do other things. You're going to respond in a way that they need you to respond in order to keep control of you and have a justification for it is the real problem. They actually justify this by these actions, and everyone else, all the other ledified people go, oh, okay, sounds right to me. So what these people up there in Flint are doing, it seems to me, given the evidence and this is correct, they've just created a bunch of criminals, and the government is forcing them to be criminals in 20 years. Hard not to see it not as a plan, especially in Flint where Detroit offered water that would not do that to their pipes. See, they wouldn't have had the problem at all and half price. Something's terribly, terribly wrong there, but I think it's terribly, terribly wrong everywhere in the same way. We have these people in positions of the seats of decision that are in there and got themselves in there and know to get themselves in there to do this to y'all. And as I've told you before, it's pretty simple. Go to the World Bank and you'll find all the toolkits that show anybody who wants to how to do this. They have told you at the World Bank, and don't forget where the origins are that. This is the United States government also creating all these things, and they're fed and all that, all this control. How to keep control. How to come back into the United States is supposed to be the government of it. The Washington, D.C. doesn't have no control, actually. But they can get you to give them control. And so they have these toolkits at the World Bank. You go find out. I don't know where they are anymore. They keep moving them. I used to talk about it in World Revolution Broadcasting. They keep moving them. So I said, somebody must be listening. It's kind of hard to believe that someone will listen to me, Revolution Broadcasting, the now defunct broadcast network. But, it's kind of funny when you start talking about something and then all of a sudden it becomes like a catching on fire, and they keep moving the ideas, the subject matters around on the internet. Why? But they did. And so you look for the World Bank toolkits, and they'll tell you how to subvert your government. They'll tell you how to subvert everything. Anything important, they'll tell you how to subvert it. And it's not the constitutional way to go. It's not, they'll tell you in the information if you know where to look for it. They'll tell you that it's not constitutional. It's a total different system. It doesn't come by the rules. It doesn't come by the statutes. It doesn't even come by the military statutes. It's an independent intrusion that's made to look like it's functioning under the law, and you say, because you probably got fluoride or lead in your brain, you say, okay. Now, as I've said, we've found that problem. We sued that problem in 2013. They admitted to it. Now it's just a matter of doing the mop-up if anybody else would be interested. And the few of us that are holding our own, but, it takes a little while when you're sweeping the street by yourself. So the EPA is supposed to be covering us on this, and now I'm showing you how that's not the case. Remember, the Clean Water Act was an act to pollute the water just a little bit. I've explained all of this stuff behind the woodshed. I don't know, I sound like I'm repeating myself, but apparently if no one's really hearing what I'm saying, in other words, I don't know about not just hearing. I mean, you can hear me. Are you taking this information and going and doing something is what is the important part? Are you taking it and adapting this concept as a universal implication and method, and then going where you see a problem and putting that method to work, to practice? This is a big dysfunction I see. People are very hard-pressed to be able to do that. I don't want to make a judgment. Everyone, don't feel like I'm judging you. It's just the fact. We're all leaden, incapacitated somewhere, somehow. But the EPA is, it's supposed to be another evidence of the EPA and the water is supposed to do all this kind of nonsense to help us protect us and keep us working, and yet they're one of the main instruments because they're environmental, see, the Imposition International. They know where to grab the agencies they needed to, and then they turned it inside out from the inside. That the EPA that was supposed to be looking out and helping y'all up in Flint and elsewhere, or you heard of Montgomery, we heard it in Florida, we heard it down in it was Texas, we heard it up there in the east, I can't remember now, out west, all these places where the water isn't what it's supposed to be. I've mentioned to you before when I went on a budget committee in a small town, it was amazing. I mean, just walked in with a pencil and a calculator, so they made me the chairman. When I started digging into things in earnest, because I was just innocent, I found they use all these places also to store money. They make all these accounts for all these services They have side accounts, collateral money accounts, funding that they take, all these other officials take from the back side, these accounts. Oh, it's no different than what was it, the Panama Papers, an expose of how you nest and money launder, how you hide money and move it around. That's what they're doing already. These people in government are doing this already. And so water is very important. You're supposed to be controlling it to your benefit. They're not. They're doing it to their benefit, to the benefit of the overall overarching global control. It sounds preposterous. No different than lead would be causing you to be a criminal in 20 years. Sounds preposterous. And yet the evidence is there for us to see. I wanted to point out that these agencies, again, when you start bringing the rights of the property to bear on this point, the EPA coming against the rancher, that when you understand and do it more correctly, you will show that these agencies of federal government really have no actual power. When Wyoming rancher Andy Johnson decided to create a stock pond for horses and cattle on his 8-acre property, he did what any conscientious landowner would do. He got permits from the state and local government before moving any dirt. What he didn't count on was the power-mad Environmental Protection Agency, which is in January 2014 said Johnson Pond violated the Clean Water Act, even though the CWA exempts stock ponds, and told him to get rid of it and threatened him with a $37,500 fine for every day he delayed. Rather than to cave to the federal thuggery, Johnson refused the order and then sued the EPA with the help of the invaluable Pacific Legal Foundation. The environmental experts he commissioned said the pond was exempt and served as a habitat for migratory birds, fish, and wildlife. More than 2 years later, Johnson won. In a settlement reached with the EPA, he gets to keep his pond. He won't need to get a federal permit. The EPA fines have been removed, and also all Johnson agreed to do was plant some willow trees and limit access to a portion of his pond for a while. I'm going to stop right there. He didn't win, folks, but here's where the agency comes in and disrespects a property owner and a producer, disrespects the law itself, misapplies it, okay? And then you have to go to an attorney's group, which misapplies the law itself and calls it a win. I'm not too thrilled with the Pacific Legal Foundation, for as much as they so-called win, you notice right in the story, they still, this rancher, even though the stock ponds are exempt under the Clean Water Act, because that's production, he still had to comply with an agreement, didn't he? So they got part of his property rights. And they put willows in. Well, that's going to suck more water from him, isn't it? So, not a silver lining on this. The point is, the EPA was wrong, notwithstanding how badly the rancher is still being treated, which explains to me and should to you that the agency is a criminal organization. It takes you to fight. That's another violation to a property owner. The property owner is supposed to have peace and settlement. It's not supposed to be thrown into chaos. And so this is to me, it's not the victory that is promoted, and it certainly is one that promotes this Pacific Legal Foundation, which if they weren't there, this rancher would have been run down and taken out. I mean, that's one of the problems. That you have to go to your abuser to get not quite so abused. But it wasn't a complete freeing up. See, the government still has its tentacles in this. And I just look at this. If the EPA is willing to come after a rancher who had exempt stock ponds, what are they in the alternative not doing when they went to Flint, Michigan, to stop the nonsense of the lead pollution back that we now see causes problems? Not just mental incapacity, it actually changes your behavior. And what is the new agenda, the New World Order agenda, if you will, the New World Order, this chaos they're throwing on everybody because it's actually re-centralizing control. Why would you think that they would even want to do this is the very reason why they're doing it. They are imposing this centralized control, and they're causing you to have incapacities, whether or not you're getting it from the metropolitan or you try to be a producer. This is the theme, and the Bar Association agrees with it, to the extent that the win is a continuing servitude. Despite the law, I can show you the law says completely different. Now, I remind you of, I think the gentleman's name in Oregon, Gary Harrington. He got the same problem. He got all his permits. See, the permits are the problem to start with. But he was within the permits, so he should have had limited liability. He has the same problem as this guy. Why is his case still going on? Well, I've seen some of the paperwork on that case. It's actually been asked to review some of it, and it's the attorneys getting involved where they have no authority and no right. No, they can't make a paper that's authoritative or an affidavit of cause. They just talk about opinions. They waste everybody's time and money. And so while the EPA sits there underneath the color of environmental protection, it's not doing that. It's protecting an environmental imposition that's for an agenda. And I'll tell you, you'll find those in the toolkits as well. World Bank toolkits. Look them up. It's fascinating. You want to change your government back? Go use the toolkits. You can use those tools to change it all back, too. And so as long as we allow this thuggery at any level, again, thuggery is crime. It's almost admitted in the words that's being used. As long as we allow it, this guy stood up, and to his credit, he stood up. Fantastic. But I think he got shafted as well. He actually has to bring up the fact that it serves the habitat of migratory birds, fish, and wildlife, as if that's going to protect his right to do so and water his stock. They don't want you to have water. If they don't want your animals to have water, they don't want you to have water, you human resource. And so these reports I read are just, to me, insights. I hope you listen and use them. They're here to see the dynamic, the method. They're here to show the conundrums and the oxymoronism, the redundancies, everything that's not right. I could care less one way or the other on all this stuff in some regard. It's not going to help me where I'm at. It doesn't seem to help anybody that listens to me if you don't listen to me. It's not listening. It's not helping the guy Gary Harrington. I've told him what the problem is. He still sits at the problem. Why? It's the same thing we sued in 2013. The attorneys are helping to destroy your life. They are conducive to this global order, if you will. This global centralized control. And I was thinking about I heard statements. It's kind of interesting. You hear statements and the answers in the statement, but you're all by yourself listening. Oh, that's the answer. I happened to be able to hear on UCY. I don't even know how I clicked on. I've been having some trouble. I was clicking some tabs. I brought up UCY. I heard William Roberts, Come Vocal Local, talking about the origins of anarchy. And it was just this week, just a couple days ago. If you listen to what he says right there and take cognizance of the way he uses the word in society, the society that they're trying to change, you're probably a lot closer to what anarchy is, and that would require that once we went from decentralized society, that was anarchy enforcing itself on society, the societal change, that if you don't work as an anarchist to maintain the decentralization, you aren't an anarchist. And to maintain the decentralization is kind of what I'm talking about with, okay, we'll focus on the law of the land and the laws that protect it and the system that's supposed to be there to protect it that's not. And from that we can stand up from the salt of the earth, if you will, and push back in its foundational, again, law of the land. It becomes now self-evident, the foundation from which you speak, that the veneer of legal cannot touch. It touches as a criminal in every aspect. That as an anarchist, if you don't turn around and fight for and hold decentralized government at bay, in high regard and functioning, to hold off centralized power, which is almost everything you see, whether it be in your money or the water, public-private partnershiping or sustainable development or Agenda 21, whatever name you want to put on it. If as an anarchist you are not fighting for decentralized society, which is our Republican form representative government, it occurs to me based on William Roberts' statement out of his finding in the earliest observations of what anarchy was the action to decentralize the power. If you don't work today as an anarchist to keep the Republican form of representative government, you're not an anarchist, it seems to me. Pretty simple. Because within that, as I say, people today have philosophies that deny reality. Within this, we find the mining districts who had individual property land holders that protected themselves, but they had to be there and active to do so. They didn't hand it over to a representative. They didn't allow the regulation to beat them down. Well, again, they were there to vote and be a voting force, not some surrogate utility, not some franchise. And their authority came from the land. You tell me in a status that's given by the government where your authority comes from the land. And so, it just occurred to me in a way, again, really miss William Roberts, really miss what he did. He went and methodically went after just to give the encyclopedic review of this stuff. I went and I was doing the application side. We worked really well behind the scenes together to understand what he could say in the books. I could explain to him how it eventuated out into what we have today and where it fell off the track, which is partly what he was doing when right near the end, he started to do his own stuff. And he made that simple observation that an anarchy was the imposition of the decentralization of control is what we have under the Republican form of government, that if you're not actually supporting that, instead of throwing everything out and supporting something that was supposed to work, and I'm saying don't come from the sake of government, you come from the sake of the law, the land itself, the land of disposal. The fact that you got some place on the land that you call is something for you to do in best use that the government cannot touch. You've just decentralized government. If you don't fight for that at every point, it will overwhelm you. It will come in, trespass, and then take you down like any nation. That this landowner had to fight shows you that. He had all the law on his side. He's still lost in my mind, even though he keeps his pond. I hope you heard that part. Congratulations to him, and at some level I appreciate the Pacific Legal Foundation to be there, to be that voice. But why did the attorney have to be that voice, folks? That's your fundamental problem. That if we recognize that and we solve that problem, I'm not sure where we're going to find the next problem, actually. As I've told you behind the woodshed, I told the sheriff and I told the commissioner, I said, how about if we just enforce the law and we honor the congressional fulfillment of the land disposal laws, and how about if we just enforce the trespasses and the crimes against those, and then let's see what happens from there. My suspicion is once we start doing that and everybody's treated equal under law, not the rule of law, the rule of law is placed above law, which is the attorneys and their system, their occupation, that fiction everybody believes is out there that's a fraud. Once we do that, we eliminate, we move ourselves from the foundation of the law itself, and it can't work. Now, once we find out that it works and we can impose it, we find that there's no one that can come against us. And for as many miners as would argue with me over how this works, they won't do what I say. They'll do as they think I say, or they won't do it all. They find themselves in trouble. And the things they think they listen to me to do to apply, they didn't hear it at all, and they find themselves in trouble. Where the people that listen to me and follow those basic, simple responses against this agency world we live in, they don't have these problems. This is the chasm between knowing and doing, folks. That's apparently a bigger jump for most people than I had ever conceived. And I guess, in a way, I fought my way through all that, and I worked it out how I would be much better for myself and than others. That I didn't appreciate that the chasm, I actually, I was evil Knievel, I guess, and I actually didn't break bony bones. That there's a big jump from knowing to doing, that we're not doing and we're not doing correctly. That when you start to do more correctly, I don't think this guy would have had this case. These attorneys wouldn't be able to look like they're the big champions. Because to me, a guy with an exemption for stock ponds, to water the cattle he had right to have and do because of his land rights, could not lawfully be imposed with a grow willow trees and have nobody show up, servitude. Let alone be the imposition in the first instance. So he had to turn around and invest his time and energy to sue a trespasser, and it came out that, well, yeah, they were trespassers, but they get to tell you what to do with your land still, even though that's not even part of the law. You tell me where willow tree placement isn't part of the Clean Water Act, folks. And so we see this thing called government has gone beyond the rudiments of what government is to really the beginnings of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness to be protected by government. It becomes its own. Those in government use it to become their own centralized power. The very thing an anarchist should be fighting. Not complaining about, not bringing up philosophy about how to be different and independent and no rules, rulers but no rules. Nonsense. It's already worked out for us if we were to go to law of the land. There is no rules there except that your peace and settlement, and there's not supposed to be a trespass against it. You have access to and from your place, and no one has the right to say anything about that. But if you convert production and land disposal into commerce, it can be regulated, and the government will take advantage. They're the parasite. Those in government they want job security, right? They want themselves to be important. And I bring up this next little notice to show you that you see the world it is because someone wants it that way. Not because it has to be that way, because they want it. But what actually caught me about this was how high alcohol content in beer gets, because that was a shocker. But notwithstanding, Ohio lawmakers vote to scrap cap on alcohol content for beer. And I'm thinking, great. I mean, this is like the legalization of marijuana. All this is the prohibition of alcohol. Okay, well, we're not going to prohibit it. They did what the occupier does. We're not going to prohibit it. We'll now just regulate it. We get money that way, and then we get control. We get control on all this. So here's the bottom line that you see that I keep telling you about. It's the bottom line. No matter where you go, this is a commerce country, and that's the adulteration. When you can separate out the commerce from the production, the land from the trade side of what happens from the land, you're going to start to see a whole different existence that we were supposed to maintain and we failed. The crime against us is someone yanking us from production side, just to living from the land and enjoying all that amongst ourselves into a commerce, special commerce entity. But they fabricate a name and try to call it a straw. We call it a straw man, wrongly. But my point on this? Removes the cap. Not beyond what I think they should never have one, actually. In a move that would allow craft brewers the freedom to make boozier beers, Ohio lawmakers have voted to scrap a cap on alcohol content for beer that's been on the books since just after Prohibition. What was the reason, though? I'll go right down to the bottom here, near the three-quarters of the way through, halfway through. Lawmakers say, it's the bottom line, folks. I tell you, it's the state anymore is a creature of politics. It's a creature of commerce. And when you can learn that and you separate this out, you're going to see your way, start to see clearer what's going on. And you'll see how quickly they can do it when the bottom line is affected. It's not about your safety. It's not about you doing anything else about you. It's about the bottom line. Lawmakers say the move levels the playing field. Did you know there was a playing field in all this? I thought it was for health and safety, welfare, and morals, folks. No, it's a game. The playing field has to be leveled here, these Ohio legislatures say. Makes Ohio even more attractive for smaller breweries like BrewDog, a Scottish craft beer company that's building its $30 million U.S. headquarters, including restaurant and tap room, in suburban Columbus. Yay, BrewDog. They're the group that put out the 200 some odd beer recipes that I sent on one of my broadcasts. You got the link. You could go get it. Thank you very much, BrewDog. But this is what it's about, folks. The bottom line. Why? Why BrewDog? Because BrewDog can actually brew beers at an astonishing rate of up to 28% alcohol when the cap was only 12. So the bottom line says we got to raise the cap to get BrewDog to come and put their $30 million in our state. I don't hear anything about police powers anymore and your safety and security and being drunk and drunk in public and all that. No, that's going to be a side benefit, right? Now, when I heard this 28%, I was astonished because as a vintner a while back in a different life when I had time and space, we'd do all kinds of wine. I'd vent just about anything. We'd invent stuff to make wine out of. Had a lot of people to produce for because it was that kind of environment. Recreating the Middle Ages is a lot of work, folks. A lot of water to wine has to go on there. But we were pressed to try and get 18% wine alcohol using the yeast that was available, the champagne yeast. And yet, in this very article, which caught my interest, is that they use that champagne yeast and some other yeasts to get it up to 28%. That's an astonishing level to me. Anyway, notwithstanding all that, I'm just blown away about the alcohol content. See, alcohol is a waste byproduct for the yeast, and it kills it off. It's like, we'll get so gross, but it's like it sits in the alcohol is like a waste product that it can only tolerate living in so much waste. This is what we do to this stuff. Anyway, fascinating. On the alcohol brewing, vintning side, in this case, the brewing side. But here's the bottom line, folks. It's about the bottom line. Your laws, your constraints, your licenses to commit crime are flexible. If the ostensible reason for making alcohol caps was your drunken stupor, the limiting of that, this proves that was a lie. That they use all these conditions the Bar Association has created in order to constrain you. You come in with enough money, folks, they'll change the law that quick. It didn't take long, did it? When they really want to, they can do just about anything. So I ask you, based on that, if this was the reason that they can do it, why aren't they making laws that make your life better in other places just as quickly and easily? Why don't they make laws that don't put the imposition on you? Why don't they just release the regulation? See, there has to be some measure of control. This is what I tell you. When you legalize pot, you made yourself, all y'all that voted for legalized pot weren't thinking too far ahead. Can't say you're wrong. You're just not thinking too far ahead. Maybe you were thinking through a leadened and a fluoride mind. I don't know. Maybe they got you figuring that you're a vegan. You can't. Protein's not important, or the differentials in protein, all the kinds and sources of protein are not important. I don't know. But they get you to vote for legalization because it's what? It's a compromise. No, don't go for what you need. Don't go for the basic foundation of law that's not imposable upon it, and said live by the law that says if you criminalize it at all, you're going to that's legalizing. Let's decriminalize. Let's get rid of the crime. It's not a crime. Here they're saying that money is what the guidance is. It's beyond police power. Why still have the regulation? So they removed it. Why don't they remove regulations elsewhere? Why don't they commit to tell you the truth that you have the right to use your own highways without interference by the state? Why don't they say that? Obviously, insurance is not a problem here. They're not worrying about you being drunk and going out and smashing somebody up in your car. We got insurance for that. They're not looking out for the mutual insurance carriers, are they? Which are ripping you off as well. Why don't they admit to all this stuff? But see, they try to justify it in the story. Oh, well, if you drink a 28% beer, you like it, the flavor, you're going to drink a whole lot less. And I have to say, I like drinking stout myself, and you're right. I mean, I like going after the flavor, not just the quantity. And so I would, not that I drink beer or even had one can't remember now how long when I last had a beer. But the point is that I would go for a quality beer and not drink a lot because I really like the taste of it, like tasting food. That's kind of important to me. So that's their excuse. It's not police powers reasons. Care less about that they drink. It tastes better. Tastes great. You drink less. Okay, that's not a reason for the state to impose in the first place. But do people look through this? No, it's about the bottom line. Here was more evidence. And I just want you to see that. If you haven't seen it that way and didn't hear about it, Columbus, Ohio, I think we have a couple listeners in Columbus or in Ohio. Get ready. They're coming. They're going to come and bring you some pretty stout alcohol, that's for sure, if that's what you're after. But more to the point, they're going to lift the cap so that you can have more stuff. I guess that's up to you to be smart. I hope you all be smart on that. Or maybe you just go ahead and get those the BrewDog's recipes and make your own. So what they call these things above, I think about 15%, are big beers. And so I did a little research and just to find out, and what it is just more stuff. You just put more to it. It takes a little bit longer. You have to do different, more exacting. That's how the yeast can go so high. It's more exacting environment. And so you just put more of the ingredients to it, and you over a longer time, better yeast, and you get this higher alcohol content. And to me, that's all irrelevant. If it doesn't taste good, I don't know why you'd be drinking it anyway. I guess you can use it at 28%. That makes a pretty, that's a lot of alcohol to distill, folks. Oh, but wait, you got the IRS on the other side and the Treasury, don't you? You gotta worry about putting gasoline. You gotta adulterate your alcohol, don't you? So where's the limit is in the commerce side, and you don't know about that part because you just think you can only do it in commerce. There's against regulations on all this. You think they're keeping track of you. They're keeping looking out for you. I'm telling you, they tell us in the news what's going on. If we just look and stop using the mind that they gave us or they've caused us to have, or the internet fiasco that they call, that everyone wants to be, we got the knowledge and about what's going on. Fukushima did it, all this kind of stuff. EPA was all over that, and all of a sudden their monitors stopped. I told you what that was about. I said, no, they're hiding the fact that you can't justify Fukushima coming to the United States. They're actually showing you the harm you live in. As a regulator, they're not going to deal with it. This is the harm they've allowed to you, or this is the pollution they've allowed to you to experience. And it's okay. It's a crime, but they'll license it. And so what am I moving on to? Millstone reactor shuts down due to hydrogen gas leak. A gas leak, of all things. Nuclear Regulatory Commission is investigating a hydrogen gas leak that has shut down the Millstone Unit Number 3 reactor in Waterford. The NRC says the leak occurred Sunday morning in a turbine building at the Connecticut plant, and workers responded by manually shutting down the reactor. Folks, they said, okay, fine. They shut it down. They said a hydrogen gas leak. Gas leak, folks. Where did that gas go? Into the air, you sure? Absolutely. They've successfully got it into the air. Now, I didn't hear anybody commenting about the increased radiation that had to happen in that regard. But it's okay. They're not talking more about it. That's supposed to happen. Why? No different than you are going to suffer the immunities to the vaccine industry and having to go to vaccine court, or the pollution that's under the Clean Water Act that's allowed, as long as you tell them. As long as they tell them there's a hydrogen gas leak from a nuclear reactor into the air, everything's okay. If they hadn't told them there'd have been problems, I'll tell you. But see, that's not looking at you. That's not saying that you're going to be protected from it. No, it happens all the time. It's just whether or not it hits the news. As I explained to you years ago, after Fukushima supposedly attacked the United States, how Ottawa got, for the first time ever, they tell you, a radiation count. See, this is in the time when the propaganda was Fukushima was doing it all, attacking and destroying the continent, that I showed you. I explained it, at least. And I had the infrared, I said had because the hard drive, it has a problem, it died. The infrared proof that the Fukushima did it next day event in Ottawa was actually caused by Bessie Davis. It's never happened since, though they haven't told you. But it wasn't Fukushima. And I was telling you then what was going on. This gas, this nuclear radiated gas is emitted periodically all over the place. It's all over the place. And the EPA and the NRC is cool with that, because you get to suffer a little bit. I want you to rethink about how this works and the level of how this is, so that you have a better way of how you know to approach it. And I'm saying that under the, I hope it's not the misguided assumption, more the presumption you will do something with it. Not everybody will do everything with everything. No, some of you should take this, put it into your mental capacity, ruminate on it a bit, and bring it out as something that you can use as evidence and proof to counter certain things that are going on in your areas that will expose these crimes against us, or at least get them admitted, and so we just at least have full disclosure. Sometimes that's just as important. We may agree, like, okay, the next door neighbor gets to burn a pile. I just have to agree there's going to be smoke from it. I still have to live here, and we have to, if I agree with the type of lifestyle I have to agree, but there might be a limit. I at least have fully disclosed to know and have a say. And where practicable, we'll try to eliminate those things that are overly onerous to us. But no, that's kind of what they're operating under. But you're not told that. I'm surprised that Fukushima didn't do Millstone. But see, that meme is fallen short. They've now got everybody to suggest that, it is local, and you've all missed that part. All this radiation is local that happens. It always has been. So, again, talking gas leaks, but they kind of don't tell you that, hydrogen gas leaks, they don't talk about possible atomic radiation potentials. There's other kind of gas leaks that the government scientists try to work on, which I thought was fascinating. As a crude segue to this story, origami robot heralds new possibilities and concerns for ingestible medicine in fixing gas leaks. Ingestible medicine continues to be controversial, but quickly arriving technology. In this video, you will see a product of researchers of MIT, the University of Sheffield, and the Tokyo University of Technology, a tiny origami robot that can unfold itself from swallowed capsule and steered by external magnetic fields, crawl across the stomach wall to remove a swallowed button battery or patch a wound. Fascinating little thing, but I don't know about this ingestible medicine about being controversial. This is a machine that folds itself up into a capsule shape that you swallow, that once it's in your stomach, it opens up, and by magnetic vibrations is moved. Think about three-dimensional control here through magnetism. We talked about all of this in the control of your brain as well. This technology is being reapplied to this. It actually moves a little robot, rolls itself into a capsule, expands after you swallow it, and for this instance, they're telling us that because there's so many people that swallow button batteries, so many little goats that swallow button batteries, this will be an invaluable tool once perfected to have a small baby, I guess, swallow. And when it gets into their stomach, it can go and find the battery that's lodged itself in the stomach because it's eating its way into the stomach wall, can attach to the battery. It probably has a magnet on it. It looks like it in the picture. The battery attaches to the magnet, and then it can work the battery out of the stomach wall because it's mechanical, and it frees it back up and then lets itself go down the gastrointestinal tract. Fascinating technology. I look at this and watch it move. It's fascinating to watch it move, but when you start thinking about that's what they're making for y'all, that's kind of scary. They're making stuff that you're going to eat. We've heard this before in the nanotechnology as well, that they can control at a distance if it's not autonomous. And guess what? That's the next part of the story in there. They're going to make these things autonomous. Now we're almost talking about, what was it? I can't remember. Something flashed in my mind about being put in a ship with people, being put into a process that gets injected into you, and they go around helping what's aiding you. A fantastic journey or something. Anyway, you moviegoers will know what the ad is. The point is that we're coming to the time when they're making robots to purportedly help you. One of the problems is that it's being designed by profit. See, we can eliminate, as we find the government already does, as the major corporation that does this, remove restrictions on crime, if it was a crime before. For the sake of the bottom line, we don't necessarily connect up the fact that these corporations are all doing this, and we kind of pass underneath the fact of these gadgets. One's in your stomach, passing gas, and the other one here that we're talking about, this that Google makes, actually uses gas or fuel. And it passes gas too. But these are all companies that are doing this for a reason, and the bottom line you see in the law is the reason is for the bottom line. That's their whole purpose anymore. Not for your good or my good. It's for their good as an entity. That we move now to these organisms that they make, these mechanical things that they insinuate in our life, that they start justifying their existence. In fact, there's not even laws against it. This artificial world of neat technocracy that works in technology, first of all, but then applied for technocracy purposes. This device that goes in as a pill that opens up in your stomach and moves around at a distance, controls at a distance, and then future autonomously. We now move back to a report that I talked to you a couple weeks ago, and moving it on through. Ex-Google engineers launch Otto, O-T-T-O, Otto, completely driverless truck testing underway. So the robots that we're creating go small, nano, mid-size, macro to these monstrous things that ex-Google engineers are having trucks, as we talked about before. They're actually having a system of transport, production, manufacture, transport, completely autonomous by computers, more efficient than man can ever do. At the story, again, these robots that are being made and being autonomous are reality already in our lifetime. The four ex-Google engineers, including a man who built Google's first self-driving car, announced Otto, O-T-T-O, not Auto, A-U-T-O, but very clever, an autonomous truck retrofitting business. The service isn't vaporware. Otto is currently operating on Nevada highways. It's already there. It's a big truck. It's a really big truck. And it runs without anybody sitting in the seat, or apparently there is a guy they showed in the video in the back seat. But it goes down the highway in Nevada, and they're originating out of California, and they're going to limit at this point everything to major highways. They have a technological safety consideration there for themselves, which is fair enough. But we now have, and we were talking before, that they're going to have these automated vehicles that are now going to be on the highways. This is reality. Here's your first evidence. There's already a truck retrofitted to autonomous action. All the existing truck drivers out there should have piqued their attention. As we talked about last week, they're removing the truck driver and the longshoreman from this supply chain creation and consumption as they control production and consumption. They're removing the driver. This is the proof it's happening. It's already working at one truck in a retrofit. You don't have to worry about having the money to buy a new one. They will retrofit an existing truck, and a company will now go autonomous, not needing their drivers anymore. So don't think that your truck drivers are the only ones. When you have the money, you won't have your car, because this new transportation system will be autonomous as well, as you're controlled at every turn. If you're not going to ride a bike, we'll drive a car to you that we believe is more efficient than the one you will have, and you don't need to buy. We'll have the communal car. Uber is testing a self-driving car in Pittsburgh. If we didn't see that coming, Uber is testing a self-driving car in public streets in Pittsburgh. Now, Google went to big trucks on highways because of the potential safety concerns. They admit they need a distance for their computers to actually look ahead for what they're doing. But Uber's doing one in town. Now, someone's eventually going to connect these up, but Uber is testing self-driving car on public streets in Pittsburgh. Uber says it has outfitted a Ford Fusion hybrid with radars, laser scanners, and high-resolution cameras. It's using the car to test self-driving capability and collect mapping data. Now, I'm just going to fascinating technology, just amazing. But I told you a long time ago, at some point, you're going to be told to get in a car and go somewhere, and it's going to drive you. You're not going to talk to any driver. You're going to be by yourself in this car. It's going to take you where you want to go. Or it's going to take you where it's told to take you to go. Like maybe down to the local jail or the magistrate, or to go answer for yourself why you used a little bit of extra carbon last night. They're making the world for you. Technocracy is going to be your future. These companies are concentrating and monopolizing power for profit against your natural right of motivation. And you're not going to say anything about it, is the problem. I just predict the future. I hope I'm really wrong, but I don't see it. I see this thing coming slowly, incrementally, in technology that was literally inconceivable when I was young. It was somewhat inconceivable when I was in the R&D. In fact, I found it fascinating to be in R&D and not have a product in the world you were working on to bring in the world. That was a fascinating view. You look out in the world, the item you're working on does not exist, and you're bringing it into fruition. As I said before, I helped a friend of mine with his patent. It got stolen by Ryobi. We got it back, and I said, in the meantime, let's improve that thing. Let's obsolete that thing. And he goes, well, how are we going to do that? I said, let me work on it. It took 2 weeks. I used a Microsoft Paint to draw a schematic, a diagram of the functioning parts to him. I sent it to him in the email. He sent it to a guy who he was working with in China. Within 30 days, what was in my brain, put on a piece of paper, sent to him on the internet, became a product in my hand 30 days later. It never existed before, and there it was. That's fascinating. That's just tremendous. I couldn't believe it. You have to understand what that took before was way beyond any the cost and time to do that, and the ability to get that done would have almost been impossible in my lifetime before that. So we're in a fantastic technological advancing thing. Whether or not we're going in the right direction with the right awareness, I don't know, but it's kind of neat to watch. That's all this technology is being put into use by those entities that are that can, in order to do the outcome of the future that we're told is coming, and that's to control your movement, your consumption, and what you do and how you do it. That you'll be getting into a car one day. Certainly it's going to be urbanized for the first part. They are saying Pittsburgh. This will be all over the place. All in the big cities, as they stack you and pack you into those cities. And you'll use the communal Uber car. You won't have your own. It'll come right to your doorstep. How convenient is that? And it'll take you where you think you want to go. Or at least until some centralized power that you anarchists didn't stop tells you where they want you to go. You're going to go see the council today. Why? Just because they want to see you. Uber's going to be there to do that, folks. And Google will have all the transport trucks to put all the Uber cars in your city. Offloaded by robots on longshore on the docks where there's no longshoremen. Loading and unloading ships that are coming. They're robot ships that don't have any seamen on it. Oh, don't make your mind go there. Get out of it. Get out of the gutter, guys. So, when we look at technocracy, we're looking at big data, aren't we? We're looking at control. We're looking at being able to interfere. Folks, I don't know about you, but I look at this technology, self-driving cars, and say, what about the hacker? What about you get in a car, you got it all, your nice little iPhone, and you put in your Google app, whatever it is, to go get an Uber ride, and you put it in, someone hacks your thing, and you show up someplace in some warehouse looking at a bunch of thugs. Well, okay, that's the second way you're looking at thugs. The first one was the government did it to you. Drive you right to the jail. Don't even need cops anymore. They just put you in a car and it drives. You think you got to, I'm going to put an app. I'm going to go to the restaurant. Next thing you're going to eat you're going to eat pod food. Yeah, but first we need your fingerprints. It's right here for us to watch it and come over us and absorb and take us down, and we're kind of letting it happen. Notwithstanding, I think the technology is absolutely fantastic. I think it's cool. Understand you're not seeing a VTOL flying a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft for sure. No, this is all the controllable stuff. What about the story? I don't know if you heard it. A guy make an app. He thought it was fun. Kind of a neat idea. You put it in an app. You say you call up an Uber car, and it takes you to a place that's not disclosed to you. just because you want to go something, you're bored and want something new to do. That's where I got the idea, well, if they can do that, they can send you anywhere, even if you don't want it. They've already got the app to do that. You think you're going one place, it puts you someplace else. That's when you consented to that program. What if they hack it and you don't, or it's already built into the back door of a Windows 10, and they know exactly what you're doing and when you did it, and the big data is telling what's going on, and, well, you just used a couple carbon credits more than you were supposed to this month. We need to have you answer for that. So when you think you're going down to work your 9 to 5 to keep up the payments on your apartment, you're going to be spending some couple hours downtown answering to the carbon czar. And I have to, as I say that, I made multiple mistakes last week. I hope you all picked it up and fixed it. I'm talking carbon, I meant carbon dioxide. Where I meant carbon, I meant carbon. Where I meant carbon dioxide, I hope you please fix it. I didn't say carbon dioxide, I meant carbon dioxide. I caught that way later. You just sometimes do that. So all this information is big data. All this stuff is going on to collect you up, bring technocracy in through technology. We're watching it come on. We're watching the future play out right here. Fantastic thing. My mind keeps flashing on these videos. I mean, some movie trailers I think I've seen where there's cars flying. Actually, I went to V2L. Cars flying over skyscraper cities. They're flying at different levels, all going like crazy. And what was the one? A guy jumps in a taxi and it goes someplace. That's Uber. But everyone else has cars and trucks, and they're all flying through the multi-levels of these skyscraper cities, thousands and thousands of stories. They're all doing it under automatic pilot. As it keeps flashing in my mind, none of these people are in control of what's going on. Seems to be a plausible future anymore. As soon as they break out the anti-gravity machine to allow those cars to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting on the ground. You'll call an Uber car, and that's how you'll get around. And you'll hope you get to your destination. You'll hope that someone didn't hack it, or you hope that some seat of decision didn't want to just see you, harass you, get you involved, or the cops didn't want to talk to you for something. Grab your phone, put it in a text analyzer to see what you've been doing and when you were going to do it when you weren't supposed to be doing that. All this knowledge is there. All this surveillance is getting us to have to give them the information because we're continually allowing it to come down. All y'all that voted this here at some point, and you voted for a transportation bill, that's where this is all going, whether you knew that or not. Whether or not you dug in deep enough to see the origins and all that, that's where all this is going. Justice Department rules a change bypasses Congress in expansion of surveillance authority, big data, Uber cars, Google trucks, origami robots in us, all computerized, autonomous or wirelessly controlled, all with the capacity to be sensors, to observe, to track. That's the mobile ones. Then you got all the non-mobile ones in place. There's a rule. Justice Department has now made a rule that's going to expand the surveillance authority, not law, a rule of the court. And this one's got me a little confused, but it's got the attention of some people. I think it's Rule 41 has the ability for them to come in, to go to a court and obtain types of surveillance information that they couldn't get before. If two senators, but now, okay, so that was a story that this Rule 41 could be bypassed. And then I wanted to use this to show you again, when it offends a seat of decision, they can instantly get it fixed or try to get it fixed. Where this shows you that the way your reality is set up is planned for you. Because if there was a problem, they can fix it. They can do it immediately. This rule was changed by the Justice Department, not Congress. The judiciary, the Bar Association, has given itself independence and autonomy that actually now create the change in the rules, which helps to enforce this surveillance society to enforce what? The security for you. And so this rule is offensive. And it's found within days, the law is going to be promulgated here. It was already in the works before, in order to try and stop this judiciary lawmaking, essentially, to affect your surveillance. If you didn't think that there was a move, and you think that the judges are sitting there in an inert capacity, they're not. again, our lawsuit tells us, it tells the tale of the future. You live in a state that was created by a trade organization whose promotion of their business is all important, and their business is to promote centralized control, which is the very thing the originating Egyptian anarchists were against, centralized control, the pharaoh. They're bringing it back, and you're watching it. And to shame. Crickets. Crickets are not going to save you. That's you being a cricket. If two senators have their way, it may soon be harder for the government to search and seize information stored on electronic devices around the globe. Do you understand what they just said here? The judiciary made a federal rule change that allows the government to see to decisions, authorities, enforcers, police, and military, whoever they want. It allows a magistrate judge of all people to sign a rule outside of his jurisdiction for the taking of evidence and gathered through surveillance everywhere. I told you back in NDAA they went extrajudicial. I told you that removed all the barriers. You think there's a border? You think Trump's going to make a wall? Give it up. It's gone. It's over. Now the rules are changing to make sure they can go global. But there's a senator that don't like it, surprisingly, because he's the one that's a nemesis for us on the production side. But nonetheless, he didn't like it because I think he found out, he's on the Intelligence Committee, he found out how intrusive it is against what he's doing. And so he's been taking a special interest in all this, and I'm glad to see it. But there's no perfection in this thing. Senators Ron Wyden and Ron Paul are co-sponsoring a bill that would halt the implementation of a newly promulgated change of the federal rules of criminal procedure, a rule that privacy advocates have denounced as a massive expansion of the surveillance state. Folks, around the globe. That's beyond expansion. That's the entirety. I told you there's no borders before. I told you Doctors Without Borders is a problem. I told you anything that speaks with the knocking down borders is a problem, notwithstanding Trump's wall. But they're doing it. They're doing it in a judicial review of this stuff. I told you NDAA explained, the memo to that explained they went extrajudicial. This explains there are no jurisdictional bounds. Highly consistent with that. These senators don't seem to like that. They're going to try and make a law change to make it and constrain that rule to a magistrate would have jurisdiction only within the district that he's presiding, even though I'll tell you that's over Article 3, Article 1, Article 4, courts as an administrator of the court, not a judge. This is so off the hook. It's when you understand. I think if you understand what I've been talking about all this time with jurisdiction authorities, establishments, and all that. This is so off the hook that we sit by is really an astonishment to me. Except that it conforms to the obligation that we're under if we can keep it, and they're taking full advantage on the fact that we aren't. What is perhaps the most disturbing about this proposed rule change is the fact that Congress, the only body in the federal government possessed of lawmaking authority, was not even involved in writing it. In fact, it was never consulted or allowed to consider the new language at all. But the judiciary is a department, right? This is how they've told us. It's like that third branch. It's supposed to be independent. It has the right to make rules of how it proceeds in administering justice. Now, you tell me, where's justice when they went extrajudicial, and I'll show you why you have no cell wall. Why you have no protection. Why Trump's wall is a fallacy. There ought to be one. But that goes down and it should be for everything everywhere. You're watching the evidence that you no longer live in a Republican form of representative government where justice is possible. I told you this back in 2014. I mean, I want to read all this stuff. It's just useless. I mean, if you're not interested to know, it doesn't matter. If you're interested, you're going to have to read it yourself. I can't do it justice what they're doing in reading. I really want to do more of this. I'm reading, I got these tabs, I got to go through more and more and more stuff is going on. There's other important things I think you need to know that for us, is if you're seeing something in the world that's wrong, this is evidence that there's people that could change it if they wanted to. That the fact that you're living under some repressive oppression and all this other nonsense and occupation and not living the life you thought we gave, then there's a reason for it. They're planning this. They could change it in a heartbeat, which means you can change it in maybe 2 heartbeats. And this is where the power of initiative, a referendum, might come in, is for those of you that can do that in your states. That's your first start. But what you see in the world right now has no borders. These rules go everywhere. How is that possible? It shows you the illegitimacy of the system. I told you don't have a government. I said that before. You have this organized criminal syndicate. It's a global syndicate. Nothing is off limits. And we, the people, never constrained it. These senators, they're making a weak attempt. And I guess that's my only point about this whole story right here, was the senators introduced a bill to block controversial change to government hacking rule. Oh, the FBI comes out and says it's not hacking if we have a warrant. Here we go back to terminology, isn't it? Who's making the definitions is not you. And so my point on that was that here the senators step up to make a rule against it. If they wanted to stop the lack of going extrajudicial, they would have made a law. They want it this way. The government wants it to go global. They want it to go centralized power. And to the extent I can agree with anarchy being the originating out of Egypt, as William Roberts was telling us through the sources he was reading from, was the movement against pharaohism, against monarchy, in the sense of decentralization, then y'all that are anarchists today are not stepping up to the decentralized condition that was gave us. And they're counting on you not doing anything about it. I do not agree with the new ageist idea of anarchy and the philosophical attachments that have been put onto other philosophical ideas and making attributions to people that never actually spoke of it in that regard. I cannot pull that together, but I certainly can say that if it was anarchy to avoid centralized power, then we're living in the time when that's being brought back. We need to stop that process back. The anarchy is to bring the decentralization, and that requires you to step up into the government that they gave us, and I'm suggesting you do that from a foundation of the property law. Because what's exclusively yours is independent, is separate. Thank you, Solomon. And it can't be aggressed. That it is being aggressed shows you how far failed we are. And as I've showed you, even when a rancher wins, he was losing, that if we eliminate that failure, we will now come back to the one last loss that we have to fight is all. And once we solve that one, now we're back to what was established for us that we were gave. And we were gave the ability to have land and be settled and quiet and peaceful in it without interference exclusively. The law says exclusive possession and enjoyment. And we see now patents, literally we watch it and read the black and white in the patents of the will and expectation and fulfillment is that the government helps you in that exclusive nature. Not interferes, not enjoins, not comes in with foreign laws, not defeats that. That's the treason. The actual anarchist today would see the reintegrating, the re-centralizing of power. See, all that I've been talking about is the re-centralizing of power and would cause the destruction of that. They would have to come behind the woodshed and see the world that has been established the way I'm seeing it from the foundation, the law of the land, and work from there to defeat this thing that has no defense against it. Because there's the system of control that sits there to do this, that we've got the proof of the case back in 2013, that continues to aggress us, that continues to confine us, that continues to control us, that even the people in the system aren't liking it. As I told you, these people are criminals beyond. They're beyond war criminals. They don't even do the control structure that was in the toolbox. And for those of you that didn't, think you don't do much and don't do wrong, you're understanding here, the FBI will make up whatever they want. They're doing the rules. They got behind the scenes. They did the rule that the surveillance, the rules that are coming to do the surveillance on whatever data is again, another report coming down to show you how important it is to not give much of anything. In fact, again, the right to remain silent has to be absolute on those things that can be used against you, because they will be. They tell us all this. Stanford quantifies the privacy-stripping power of metadata. More proof, if proof were needed, the privacy-stripping power of metadata. A multi-year crowdsourced study conducted by Stanford scientists and published this week underlies how much information can be inferred from basic phone logs cross-referenced with other public data sets. Other public data sets, like your call to Uber, and where they delivered you, and when, and who else did that, and who else's app was looking at that, and who were you all meeting, and whether or not it was diverted, and did it get hacked, intentionally or unintentionally. All that stuff is available, cross-referenced, inferred by all this information, big data. Making up stuff, as we found a couple weeks ago talking about the investigator looking input and his prejudice into a condition that makes up information that said that must be a crime. That's where Uber gets a call when you jump in the car. You thought you were going downtown to Cafe Latte, and they're going to end up being you're going to eat pod food for a couple days while they straighten out the problem. And you have new style apodment, the one where you have bunkmates and cafeteria food. So the studies are coming to tell us exactly. They're letting us know. For this, it can't ever be said they didn't let us know. What I'm telling you is happening. I'm sometimes not so astonished, but I mean just to see the reconfirmation of everything I say, pretty much everything. I don't know. I don't study everything that I say all the time, but I try not to say much that's outside of what you're going to see and hear. But the most of what I say gets reconfirmed and reshown and restructured and reconfined and reshown to us to be exactly the track they're bringing us down. And that's why I bring crickets, because that's how we're responding to it, and that's not going to be enough. I say this over and over. Big data is the future. How we're going to walk that path to keep big data from utilizing that same technology we need to do what we do is going to be the real tale of the tape as well. So you got to put your mind in how to do that. It's getting very difficult because they want that surveillance data from other places. Bringing up Microsoft auto-scheduling, Windows 10 updates. For those of you that have Windows 7, 8, 1, 8, all this other stuff, Microsoft is going to auto-schedule your Windows 10 update. They're going to just do it. They want the backdoor malware that is a big data, big corporation monopoly looking for other places for metadata and maybe more, actually the data itself, to be able to put into databases that are being used by whomever for whatever reason. Hackable at that. That's the other problem. It just gets me. How can you even consider this as even a secure place? It's an oxymoron to begin with. Windows 10 has been with us for a little over 8 months, which means that they are only about 4 months remaining to get a free upgrade from an older Windows operating system. As the clock counts down, Microsoft has begun to auto-schedule PCs to upgrade to Windows 10 with or without consent of the end user. Now that said, there is this little button if you know where to look on the window. If you get there soon enough, it will stop it. In other words, you do have this last little moment, but this is going to go under the skin. It's just going to come in. It's going to start. It's just going to start. They want this in your system. It's malware, professional corporate malware, but see, they have a warrant to do it because they're the licensee. So I guess, like the FBI says, it's not malware. It's certainly not with your consent, and it's certainly not for your best interest. It's for the interest of being a party to the gathering of surveillance for the other party, the surveillance state, which is what? It's just finding ways to make you pay. It's all about your energy. You're going to put it out somewhere. You're going to get your fictional money. That's a benefit because it doesn't exist. That's why it's a benefit. And they're going to be able to tap into that. And they'll have everything that you're doing and all that you have and all that they know what you don't have too. They know what you're doing that you couldn't have accounted for. They know, and so that indicates another thing that they know that you're doing. We might call it that black market or off books, but it's still part of off books, isn't it? It's still part of the system. You don't turn it into untouchable asset and then go after them for the fact of the trespass. That's what I'm trying to show everybody. And like I said early on in the broadcast, those straw men you talk about don't exist. They're a fraud. I don't say that with opinion. I just proved it in a record. If you get lost in the straw man thing, you're lost. You're just getting lost. You get on the wrong point. That's a straw argument for your mind. And they won. That's pretty fascinating how they really control us on all this. But so this information and what you're doing and Windows 10 coming in as malware, and now we've been talking, they've been forcing it. Well, now it's just going to auto up. You turn on your computer, it's going to start. Unless you know the magic click, and then even then that's going to be taken apart. And that free end of that free upgrade, that's a lie. They're going to want everybody in on this. They want big data. They want surveillance. They want other sources, like the other story came from. And now they know that they're going to do this to your computer in the future. So what are we seeing on the horizon? But at least the concepting and the movement toward the fact that refusing to decrypt a hard drive may equal indefinite jail time. Indefinite detention, it's now a misdemeanor if that's the case, and they can indefinitely detain you as a security risk, can't you? What I talked to you about at the NDAA indefinite detention is this. They don't need a judicial rule anymore. They just want the data, the places to say there's data there. Windows 10 is being a big tool for that. Failure to decrypt could become a criminal offense. We talked last week about the matter of contempt of court. They make it a contempt of court. You can't easily fight that. It's beyond. See, they do everything beyond the constraint of your protections, and they know it. Those things were put there for that. It's what I started reading for. It's what I think makes the difference for me. One suspect who was arrested on the grounds of being involved with child pornography continues to refuse to decrypt 2 of his hard drives. And that's the other thing they do here, folks. Who wants child pornography? Nobody. But that's the one they put up examples, so you all say, well, we got to have it. We got to have this guy. We got to take him down. He doesn't have a right. Forget innocent until proven guilty. Forget that even if he is one and they do this, they're after you the same way. What if they planted this stuff? What if through Windows 10 someone hacks your system? Remember, the upgrades through Windows 10 you're the source for the upgrade. What if someone hacks that upgrade and all of a sudden you get pornography and they know about it now? You become this guy. The report goes on. This is not an unusual story. As citizens have no legal obligation to do so under the law, enforcement officials come up with a warrant stating otherwise. However, this is not a likely scenario for the time being. They wait you out. They make it happen as they need to. They get the reality they want, and you've seen evidence today that they can do it pretty much immediately. If it deals with the bottom line or some way that affects the bottom line or some way that allows more control, they can change whatever they want without your input. And you give them that consent when you don't put the input, and that's the problem going on. But if it is up to the U.S. federal prosecutors, that might soon change, as they seem to be getting more impatient when citizens are not heeding their calls to decrypt devices. The child porn suspect has been behind bars for 7 months, yet prosecutors propose an indefinite jail sentence unless 2 hard drives are decrypted. The United States government strongly feels this man, a Philadelphia police sergeant, the cover of the costume, folks, should, they really lay this one thick. They want you to say, yeah, the government should have this power. The police department sergeant, or there's corruption in the system. Remember, people lose lives over trying to expose this. Should be left in jail until he complies. But enforcing such a sentence could prove to be more problematic. While some people may feel this would be a violation of the Fifth Amendment right, authorities claim otherwise, as they see this as a foregone conclusion. There is child pornography on the hard drives. Moreover, they argue their case by saying the suspect only needs to unlock the drives and not reveal the passcodes. I won't read on. You need to read this. You need to see how they're going back and doing this. The point is that they make it a criminal offense. They make it a contempt of court, and you have a very little bit to say against that. You're offending the conscience and the decorum of the court. Now, all of a sudden, all this non-judicial stuff or this extrajudicial stuff becomes important as justice, folks. You have to understand the contortion that's going on here. Some of you probably do. You have to put in your mind how this works so you can be in anticipation of how they construct the system against you. And I just keep pointing out, and we're letting it. We're letting it. Windows 10 comes in, they construct this stuff, you have to decrypt, you give it over, and then they find the very stuff that they planted there or was hacked there for them to know, or they fabricate more hassle, like that rancher having to even fight for his own water stock even though it was exempt. Just having to fight for that. You think you have resources to do that when they're sucking those away from you as well? No, this is a battle that's set up against us, so we really don't have the opportunity to be quiet on it. Developer of online anonymity tool Tor flees U.S. to escape FBI harassment. It was an interesting little story. The FBI wants the cryptographer who goes by Agora Lovecraft, which I thought was funny. Agora Lovecraft, to testify in a criminal hacking investigation, but privacy advocates, as well as Lovecraft herself, believe the Bureau will attempt to coerce her into helping them crack the system. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF, the leading nonprofit organization defending electronic civil liberties, has also taken on the case. The FBI needs to open up and tell Izzy, her name is spelled I-S-I-S, but what it is they want before she can decide if she will meet with them. I won't read more. Again, on and on. These people do what they need to do. They're going after the people that create the ability to create the encryption, even though it's going to be a crime to not decrypt. You have to see the dynamic in this. It's pretty fascinating how they work both sides on this, and you have to be aware of this danger. My thought was, why don't we make programs that if we put a certain passcode, it just wipes your whole hard drive. It just wipes it. Here's my passcode, and it's a subroutine. It just wipes your whole computer. So you have one of two passcodes you can give them: the one that wipes the whole computer, or the one that opens it up. For those of you that suffered underneath ransomware, which I think Windows 10 is, part of the reason why I'm mentioning this, Tesla Crypt shuts down and releases master decryption key. It's surprising. In a surprising end, the Tesla Crypt, the developers shut down their ransomware and released the master decryption key. Over the past few weeks, the analysts at ESET had noticed the developers of Tesla Crypt have been slowly closing their doors, while their previous distributors had been switching over to distributing a Crypt XXX ransomware. For those of you that know anybody that might be involved with that, or you can now get the decryption key. I got the Blogcaster link for you over there. This is they saw the error of the ways. I guess they're changing, or they shut down. They don't want to do that no more. But I was just wondering, why did Windows 10 give us the decryption key, and that they won't means they're just abject criminals and intent on doing us harm. So I thought this was very important. The Tesla Crypt for ransomware, they're shutting down to give you the key. It does apparently work. You'll have the blog. It's from Bleeping Computer. I believed I can trust these guys for over years and years and years. They haven't steered me wrong on information that I know of. There's a story for it. So those of you that know, and also know that there's people working against these ransomwares that may hit you. But remember, don't open anything that you don't understand. Don't think that they tell you something. It's what it is. Look very carefully at what the file. Look at the file properties. I just had another email. Someone who sent an email said, "This is are you hacked?" They didn't even know they were hacked. Well, they did know they were hacked. They opened up a document, and it immediately grabbed their contact list and sent emails out for other people. And so watch this on the first. For those of you involved, Tesla Crypt is given the master key. Listen for people who might need it. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you found some of this information helpful. I do hope you take it in, ruminate on it, and then bring it back out for where you need it. All these little tips are here for us to do. Thank you to Grimner again for the space and the time and all the work he does at reallibertymedia.com and Jules at ucy.tv and Freedom's Network, social network that Freedom and GoDaddy put together, and be in contact there as well, and all the terrestrial broadcasters. I do appreciate your support, folks. MarkOnTheBeastYahoo.com if you want to, MarkOnTheBeastYahoo.com if you want to contact with me. Donations for content or ideas or things like that. I try to get to it all. But thank you very much. I'll keep on plugging and turn the broadcast out to other networks, maybe to Synchrocast and or Pastcast. You take care. I'll be back next week. Tech diffs and nature willing. Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave.
from behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast. This is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
So that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son, you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.